When the two witnesses have completed their witnessing, the beast that comes out of the abyss will make war on them and conquer them and kill them. Their corpses lie in the main street of the great city known by the prophetic names Sodom and Egypt, in which their Lord was crucified. The two pivotal virtues necessary to facilitate every other virtue are chastity and humility. These two form a spiritual ecosystem, with the fertile ground of humility radiating upwards to reinforce the dome of the sky, which is called chastity. Chastity, likewise, serves to shield humility. Chastity forms the atmosphere that waters the other virtues, allowing them to thrive. Like flowers in a garden, these two form a symbiotic relationship where without one of these virtues, the other fails. The only thing to look forward to when you destroy the spiritual ecosystem are the worms in the ground. Pride and lust are the two crimes of Gibeah that destroy true worship of the Lord by eradicating charity of neighbor and thus love of God. Good deeds are born out of the gift of the fear of the Lord, which replaces lust altogether, fulfilling the catechesis of the wedding between mankind and the Lord. The binding is not meant to restrict choice, but to embrace freedom from the wiles of the ancient serpent, the real enemy, the devil. This can be easier to do with the rosary, just FYI, to save 10 years of trouble. Jesus enjoins his disciples to prefer him to everything and everyone and bids them renounce all that they have for his sake and that of the gospel. Shortly before his passion, he gave them the example of the poor widow of Jerusalem who, out of her poverty, gave all that she had to live on. The precept of detachment from riches is obligatory for entrance into the kingdom of heaven. All Christ's faithful are to direct their affections rightly, lest they be hindered in their pursuit of perfect charity by the use of worldly things and by an adherence to riches which is contrary to the spirit of evangelical poverty. Metaphorically speaking, renunciation begins with humility. Realizing through self-knowledge, through the practice of chastity, can humility be truly formed. Admit guilt when that day of recompense comes. There is no reason to fret. Blessed are the poor in spirit. The Beatitudes reveal an order of happiness and grace, of beauty and peace. Jesus celebrates the joy of the poor, to whom the kingdom already belongs. The word speaks of voluntary humility as poverty in spirit. The apostle gives an example of God's poverty when he says, "For your sakes he became poor." The Lord grieves over the rich because they find their consolation in the abundance of goods. Let the proud seek and love earthly kingdoms, but blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Abandonment to the providence of the Father in heaven frees us from anxiety about tomorrow. Trust in God as a preparation for the blessedness of the poor. They shall see God. Chastity means the successful integration of sexuality within the person, and thus the inner unity of man in his bodily and spiritual being. Sexuality, in which man's belonging to the bodily and biological world is expressed, becomes personal and truly human when it is integrated into the relationship of one person to another, in the complete and lifelong mutual gift of a man and a woman. The virtue of chastity, therefore, involves the integrity of the person and the integrality of the gift. The virtue of chastity comes under the cardinal virtue of temperance, which seeks to permeate the passions and appetites of the senses with reason. Self-mastery is a long and exacting work. One can never consider it acquired once and for all. It presupposes renewed effort at all stages of life. The effort required can be more intense in certain periods, such as when the personality is being formed during childhood and adolescence. The virtue of chastity blossoms in friendship. It shows the disciple how to follow and imitate him, who has chosen us as his friends, who has given himself totally to us, and allows us to participate in his divine estate. Chastity is a promise of immortality. Chastity is expressed notably in friendship with one's neighbor. Friendship represents a great good for all. It leads to spiritual communion. There are three forms of the virtue of chastity. The first is that of spouses, the second that of widows, and the third that of virgins. We do not praise any one of them to the exclusion of the others. This is what makes for the richness of the discipline of the Church. Those who are engaged to marry are called to live chastity in continence. They should see in this time of testing a discovery of mutual respect, an apprenticeship in fidelity, and the hope of receiving one another from God. They should reserve for marriage the expressions of affection that belong to married love. They will help each other grow in chastity.